But good to meet you, man.
You too, brother.
Officially, yes. Tyson Popplestone.
A Popplestone. You're very
Popplestone.
close. I mean,
They said Poppleton.
Yeah.
I'll show you the message. I'm a professional. Poppleton. Now, that makes a lot of sense because I Googled Tyson Popplestone and I thought, he's not doing too well because the thing that popped up was just like a guy who writes reviews on cycling in New South Wales. And I thought, if this is the bloke, we're going to be scratching the bottom of the barrel trying to find stuff. I was like, what's your carbon fiber frames? Is that what you're about, Tyson? But that's going to be good. Tyson Popplestone, well, you have to educate me, brother. Take me on the journey of you. Where are you from originally? Where are you based? What's your heritage? And what brought you to start stand-up comedy?
Well, it's funny that we start on Poppleton, actually, because Poppleton is my heritage. So it's a northern England town. The name Popplestone originates from Poppleton. I've visited. There's nothing there. It was a really wise move by my family to get out as soon as they did. I've been in Melbourne for as long as I can remember now. Like I've been there since I was about on and off since I was a baby. Like I'm a Melbourne boy. I had a little stint here in like my early high school years, and then just found my way back there. But bro, man, I've been a little bit of a state slut, is what I'm referred to by a lot of my friends. I feel as though I've spent a lot of time in a lot of different places, but keep seeming to navigate my way back to Perth, especially as I've gotten involved in comedy the last couple of years. It seems to be becoming a bit more of not a home base, but maybe a second home base.
Somewhere to recharge.
For sure. It's definitely a recharge place.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys cop a lot of shit from a lot of interstate guests, but the truth is you've got plenty of bogans for like sunshine and beaches that compensate for it well and truly, I think.
So that's cool, man. So you've been in Melbourne for as long as you can remember, and you're a state slut. What made you move around so much? Was it like family work? Was it your work? What made you travel so much?
Man, I think my mum's just an adventurer, really. Yeah. I grew up with my mum, and when I was 8, she was just ready for a bit of an adventure, which is why we came here. She goes, she had a little bit of family here. I think the idea of, there was no ties necessarily in Melbourne where we were based, or in Gippsland. So that was that. My dad was in Adelaide, and so after year 12, I went and spent a little bit of time with him. I was also a runner. Like I was a middle distance runner for a long time. Oh, and wow. Part of the travel was just dictated by coaches and training groups and things that I had. And so between like just chasing different groups and trying to train with different people, just part of the blessing of that was just being able to go and spend time in different states, different cities, and just trying to improve the running side of things.
So running, I want to touch on that, man. When did that start for you? Was that sort of just like was your family right into athletics? Did you start quite young and sort of how did you pursue that to a professional level? What was it for you?
Yeah, I always say like I was pretty good in Australia. But really, that was about the extent of it. And if you're a runner, you know that if you're just good in Australia, that when you're lining up next to a Kenyan or any African, they're on a world stage, you're not really making too much of an impact. But I started here actually when I was in WA. I won the state champs when I was under 14, and it was like my first taste of sporting success, really. Wow. And as a result, I was like, okay, I think I found my thing. And so like for 15 or so years after that, that was my red hot pursuit. I feel as though the energy actually that I now put into comedy, it used to be sort of put into that training and competition. And there's a lot of similarities, I think, between the two scenes, which is part of what got me interested in doing stand-up comedy, which we can talk about if you want. But man, so from about 14 to 25, I'm 37 now, that was my red hot pursuit. That was what I was having a crack at. As I said, Australia went pretty well. I wasn't the best in Australia by any means, but there's not a Kenyan in the world who couldn't kick my ass, I don't think.
You're a top-level Caucasian. That's what we call it, you know what I mean?
That's a significant...
Top Caucasian.
Bro, they have weight divisions in boxing. I feel as though they need a continent division for running.
So
do you know what I mean? Like it's...
Tyson's calling for an apartheid in athletics. He's like, we got to get it fair, guys. Come on.
Running. That's what I always laugh at. People always talk to me about this white privilege. And I often laugh about the fact I go, bro, I grew up just wishing I was a black dude for my whole life. Like the idea of white privilege doesn't exist in distance running.
Do you do that on stage at all? Do you ever talk about that?
No, like I've flirted with it, but I haven't figured out how to say it without being complete racist.
Hey, listen, you let the audience decide. That's fantastic.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, that's great to know. So, man, and look, so you're doing the running, and that becomes a red hot pursuit for you for 15 years. I want to ask you, when you get that first hit of success, when you get that first hit of I'm good at this, and then that becomes the whole identity, it becomes the whole life. Looking back, did you love running the whole span of your career, or was it at some point you're like, I'm just still chasing this thing I decided I wanted to do when I was young?
Man, I feel as though, like all of the above, seriously, I think it was a bit of a love-hate relationship with running. I mean, I went for a run this morning just through the Yanchep National Park, and it was one of those runs where it was beautiful, but it was hot, and it was hilly, and I was tired. And I had one of those runs where I was like, oh, I can see why people hate this. Like I always say it's the equivalent of a bomb. Essentially, you go out and you go, okay, this isn't necessarily enjoyable. But then you wake up the next day and you feel fit, you have a nice run. And you get like a little bit of a taste of what success in that scene feels like. So I think for me, for a long time, I braced those highs when they came around, but I was very aware of the fact that 90% of running was run like I had this morning. Like it was fairly uncomfortable, and you don't necessarily notice that there's any big breaks taking place. I think I struggled a little bit with allergies towards the end of my career, which I didn't know were allergies. I thought I just was constantly getting sick for no reason. Wow. So it was towards the end of my career, it was a real, like that love-hate relationship with running got tilted well and truly towards hate, which is part of the reason I left the sport. But man, honestly, like I think this is a bit of a tangent to what you're asking, but I think like the foundation of running, it just taught me the discipline of whatever it is that you're trying to improve at, which, you know the feeling, which has served as like one of the most important lessons, especially for comedy, like getting involved here now and having the understanding that a lot of it's going to be uncomfortable and bombs and embarrassment and frustration. I think when I compare it to the world of running, I go, oh, no, this is familiar territory. Like, this is okay.
And every now and then you get a comedy Kenyan come along that just absolutely buries you, and you're like, what?
Yeah, that's true.
How do you do that?
And they don't even have to be black. The comedy Kenyans, of course. The comedy Kenyans can be of any colour.
That's it.
But you're right, brother. You sit at the back of the room, you're like, that looked easier than it should look.
I can't even see what they're doing. I don't even see the tricks. How are they so good?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure, man.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man. I mean, where was comedy in your life and in your family and in your upbringing while you're pursuing running? I mean, did you grow up watching comedy on the TV? What was comedy to you?
Dude, no. Comedy was something that even when I spoke to a lot of my friends about it, early 20s, and they said, is it something you would ever do? Because, I mean, like the idea of comedy is terrifying to so many people, as you know. And like so many of my mates asked this question, like, because I was a bit of a joke teller in my group. And they said, oh, would you ever do it? And the idea, it terrified me. Like the idea of standing up in a room full of people. And I don't think I had the understanding that it is really a work in progress or like a constant workshop. I think I saw comedians as just like naturally gifted, spontaneous, comedy Kenyans, to steal your phrase. And that was just way out of my comfort, I think. But then, man, like as I started to get towards the end of my running career, I listened to a lot of Joe Rogan talk about like the correlation between martial arts and comedy and how, discipline and being beaten up and being frustrated. What we were just saying with the running before, it leads to results if you're patient and smart with it. And I think when I left the running pursuits, and I had just all this stored up energy to go, I want to have a focus. I want to have something to really target this towards. It became something that like got a little more magnified and got more interested. But man, like from a family perspective, there was never a time where there's no one in my family that has any interest in doing this, outside of like the dinner table.
Yes, of course. So when was the first time that you actually do stand-up comedy? Talk me through that experience. Was it an open mic? Were you dared into it? Or what year was it?
Well, bro, so funny story, before I did stand-up comedy, I was a youth pastor. So I worked at a church with like a young congregation, and my wife used to always laugh at me because I'd get off stage after a sermon and I would always go, I don't feel as though it went very well. She's like, oh, what are you talking about? It was great. I was like, yeah, but it barely got any laughs. So it was always like, even on stage, I was very conscious of like, I felt like I connected with an audience when there was laughter. And when you're in a church, I mean, the focus shouldn't be just how many laughs you get, but mine was, that's part of the reason I'm not working there anymore, I think, because I had the wrong intentions from stage. So that was like, I had no grounding necessarily in the world of stand-up, but I was very aware of what it took to get laughs and the discomfort of trying to have a crack at a joke and it bombing. Good thing with church is like a lot of the congregations are patient. They're not there for laughter. So if it bombs, it doesn't hurt as much as... There's also a lot more fake laughter thrown out in a church world as well. But from there, bro, I sort of just recognized this love of the laughter and communication. And yeah, 5 years ago, end of 2018, I was like, well, maybe we'll try and put something together that's aimed specifically at funny rather than, anything to do with the Bible or church or whatever else.
And if you're bombing, just start getting into a testament or something, just dive on in.
Dive into how many people we can convert.
Yeah. Dive into the word of the Lord if you're not getting the laughs.
Which honestly, in a room like this would probably get the most laughter of any joke you can do.
That's great, man. So you get up 5 years ago, open mic in Melbourne. How does it go?
Yeah, dude. It was a really friendly room. Have you ever? There was a room called the Highlander in Melbourne. I don't know if you've.
No. I'm not across them, but I'm sure.
So it was maybe like a 25-seater. Really good guy who ran it. Really encouraging little crew. Like there was a little bit of a clique there, but I'd say clique in the sense that they were warm, and it was a familiar face each week. So I got up. I'd been there a couple of times. I did okay. I was like, I think a lot of the laughs were friendly, but it was enough to go, oh, okay. Like I can see how like that joke went well, that joke fell flat. What went wrong here? What went well? And dude, I just got bit by the bug so hard that I think a couple of nights later I was back out there and sort of haven't stopped sort of just trying to navigate that world of stand-up since.
That's great, man. And what is it? What was it about the bug? I mean, you talk about the discipline from running and being able to transfer that in, and comedy is a battle of attrition. It's not necessarily about talent, like you recognise. What is it about stand-up that you love even to this day?
I think it's that. Like I love the fact that like you're rewarded for the work that you put in. But I also love how many moving pieces there are in stand-up comedy. Like we were saying before, it's one of those things where it blows my mind that you can have a 5-minute set and you can come into one room and you can do that 5-minute set and you can bring the house down and you can take that 5-minute set to another room the next night and you can bomb. And I was speaking about this in the green room last night. It's like, okay, yeah, part of it is your material and a lot of it depends on the comedian, like obviously. But then there's different energy levels in a room. Like you walk into a room and it's flat and you can feel it, or you walk into a room and some topics are like you're not supposed to talk about that here. And I just love trying to figure out like what is the right recipe to make this work tonight. And I just feel like you can never just put your finger on it completely. And I always say like whether you kill or whether you bomb, you never want that to be a last experience because the dopamine hit or the embarrassment just keeps bringing you back to try and improve.
Yeah, it's a vicious loop. If you bomb, you're like, I can't go out like that. And if you get the high, you're like, I need to taste that one more time.
For sure, man.
Oh, yeah. Comedy junkies. Forgive me, I just had a question. Totally forgot. Oh, sorry. What were some of the comedians that you loved growing up? Like, who was in your radar?
Yeah, I was always like a Carl Barron man. I feel as though for a bloke who's not like, or for any person who's not necessarily in the world of comedy, Carl Barron's a real nice point of entry.
He's a gateway comedian.
He's a gateway comedian. And from there, like on Australian level, I loved him. But bro, like pretty much anyone who's saying the things that you're not really supposed to say. Part of what attracted me to comedy was Melbourne's such a PC city that the idea of just being able to come out and flirt with the line of inappropriate in a clever way is really attractive to me because it's dangerous, it's a bit naughty, and if you do it well, it's fun. And if you do it bad, well, you're not kicking at that room in Melbourne again, you know? So I like the stakes of that. And as a result, like I've always loved Ricky Gervais. Yeah, but I think Carl Barron, Ricky Gervais, they're a couple of my favorite. There's an Italian guy I've just started to get into. Is it Max Altini?
Max Altini. I've heard that name. Yeah. Is he Italian American or is he?
Yeah, he is.
Okay.
He's based in like Tucson, Arizona. I found out today because he targeted his ads really well. And he came up on my Instagram feed. I might be completely messing up his name, but I think it's that. Okay. Max Altini, maybe. But his crowd work is one that I just find fun. Schultz as well, Andrew Schultz.
Yes.
I love him.
I mean, you've mentioned a few there, and they have varying styles, which is so fascinating about comedy, right? There's no one way to do it. There's all these different points of view and personalities. What is it that you think is something that all great comedians have in common, though? Like, regardless of their style?
Oh, dude. That's a great question. That's a great question, man. I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm sure there's something in the technique and the structure. Like Ricky Gervais, he always says something which rings true to me. He's like, work hard and be lucky. Yeah. And I like that idea because obviously there's a big element of hard work and of joke writing and of restructuring and being able to actually confront what went so poorly to be able to get back up and do it well. But then like there has to be some element of luck because I've seen, dude, there's so many guns in Melbourne. who just don't have a profile. And I watch them, I go, how are you not huge? And for whatever reason, like whether it was career choice or what, no one knows them.
Yes.
And so I would have no confidence to answer what it is that they're actually doing, which makes them so big. But those two things seem to be real standout points for me with the comedians that I love as well. But just, like, apart from that, they just seem undeniably funny.
Yes, of course.
They're that kind of person where you're like, oh, whatever you're doing is so good.
Yes.
I don't know, dude. Like, what do you reckon?
Well, I want to clarify as well. I don't mean in terms of commercial success. I mean just in terms of, just being a great comedian, regardless of gender, race, anything like that. It's something that fascinates me as well, because there are so many styles, but there are these greats that, someone can enjoy who have so many different points of view. And sometimes those points of view will clash, but we love them regardless. For me, I think it's just something that you were talking about with wanting people to, you're flirting with a dangerous idea. I think great comedy connects people, regardless of their beliefs or their preconceived notions about things. When you see someone up there that is doing something that you laugh at, you can't help but share in a human experience and think, oh, you know what? Yeah, that is, I don't agree with you, but I see that and that's funny. And you're not attacking me. We're all having a fun time.
For sure, man. Like, that's one thing I love. You can, exactly what you said, the idea of someone poking fun at whatever it is that you do. I mean, I was a youth pastor. There's so much there. And the idea that most of the people that I do comedy with have no interest in God or church or religion, and for good reason in a lot of people's lives. But the fact that you can see a comedian who's clever with the way they make a joke about that, you go, who am I arguing with? That's hilarious. That's a great joke.
Of course.
And I think what I like about it is it forces you not to take yourself too seriously. Otherwise, it's a really uncomfortable, not fun experience to be a part of. Because I realized real quick that the comedians aren't backwards in coming forward. Like, if there's a joke opportunity there, they're gonna have a crack.
Yeah, and self-importance is the death of funny sometimes, isn't it?
For sure.
What's your style, man? I mean, that's a very general question, but when you first started to now 5 years on, have you sort of developed your style? Were you initially emulating a comedian that you liked? What would you say your style is?
Maybe like a storyteller. Yeah, that's the only way I know how to answer that question. Like, a lot of people have said, oh, what style of comedy do you do? And that's the only, I think I'm a bit of a storyteller. Like, it'd be very rare to see a punchline. Hopefully not a punchline. That's my goal. It'd be very rare to see like a one-liner just sneaking through.
Yes.
In my set, I think.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, chippies. Hello. Thank you so much, brother. We got some chips here for a possible naughty little surprise at the end, Tyson.
Sure.
I know it is a painful question, that style thing, because again, we're all just trying to be funny and we're all trying to figure that out bit by bit. But like you said, the one-liner comics versus the storytellers, and then eventually bridging it all together. Who's someone in the scene, could be in Melbourne or in Australia, that you've worked with that you really admire?
Oh, dude, that's so many people. Who do I really like? I've had a chance to gig a little. My most memorable gig, I opened for Arj Barker at a cinema in Melbourne. And I think it's a combination of factors. I think I felt as though it was a big call, like where I was pulled out of an open mic community and given an opportunity by a bloke who ran the room to go, like, do this. And I remember just standing there, and maybe it's magnified the size of that opportunity to me at the time was like, this is mind blowing that I've got this. And I remember standing at the back watching him, just going like, this is like an Australian great at the very least, doing his thing, which was huge. But man, like, there's just a lot of blokes I love. I love Mark Oshka. I don't know if you know who that is.
No,
but
please.
He's like the epitome of he's the opposite of mainstream, and he's like a walking contradiction. And I say it as a compliment. Like, you see him on stage and you hear what he jokes about, and you're like, oh, this is a wild man. And then you get him off stage and you have a conversation with him. You're like, oh, this guy's a deep thinker, and he's so unpredictable. And I love the fact that he's walking to the beat of his own drum, in the sense that he's not doing anything for profile, as far as I can tell. He's not doing anything for the big gig. He's just like, all right, what do I think funny?
Yes.
Is it appropriate? Is it inappropriate? I couldn't care less. Let's go with this. And the things you see that guy get away with, I often go like, wild, like unbelievable, man.
Yeah, the authenticity of some of those comics can often make you go back and look at yourself and go, I need to be more authentic. What do they do? This is amazing.
And I think sometimes as well, like I'll get a little nervous, especially if I'm playing with a joke, which I know is a sensitive issue and it's not ready yet. And I probably shouldn't be saying it in public. I watch a guy like that. And I'm like, dude, like, just back yourself, have a crack. And if you do it well, like, no one looks at him and like, oh, he's an asshole. They look at him and they're like, I can't believe he's saying it. Yes. But dude, as you said before, I love watching a guy like that do stuff you're not supposed to do in a way that brings audience, whether they're left, right, like, liberal, conservative, it doesn't matter. They're like, this is hilarious.
Yes.
And that's a skill that I really respect.
Yeah. The goals are always interesting to me in comedy. People set goals initially. What is a goal that you have today, 5 years into your career?
I just want to keep improving is my goal. I love, we're sitting here in Perth at the moment, and like, this is such an amazing venue to me. And just the idea of just doors opening like this has been really exciting.
Yeah, man.
I love the idea of just refining the craft. And and I feel as though, I don't know if you're like this, but when you reach a particular point in any career, I love how the horizon just constantly moves. And what I think I'm aiming at right now, when I hit, I'm like, oh, okay, like but now I want to go in this direction. And so, I don't know with any like conviction exactly where I want to be in 5 years or whatever, but I definitely just want to keep working hard, keep refining, keep being honest with myself about where I suck and where I'm good. And like, really trying to light up the strength in my comedy and try and tighten up, plenty of loose ends that still exist.
Well, that's great, man, and I hope it's comforting to hear. But I've interviewed a lot of comedians whom I admire who have varying lengths to their career, sometimes decades, and all the great ones. It's a very consistent thing. They just say that it comes back down to just keep improving with the craft. That's all there ever is. There's never anything more than that. And if you reach the top of the mountain, you still go, I got to get better.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's great, man. Well, Tyson, is there any where can people find you, man? Because I don't type in Tyson Popplestone. You will find a man who reviews cycles, bicycles. I keep saying cycles. But where can people find you? Are you on the social medias? Is there any shows that are coming up or podcasts that you would like to promote?
Man, I do actually. Of course, I have a podcast.
Of course,
because,
man.
Like, who doesn't have a podcast?
White straight dudes, we've got to keep the podcast going alive. That's what we do, baby.
Right, brother. The beauty with the name Popplestone is there's not too many. And so, like, I'm on all the social media. And so if you're interested at all, for anyone who wants to check it out, Tyson Popplestone. I don't think you're going to end up, if you spell it right, on this cycling reviewer guy's page. And if you do, maybe he's got some wisdom to share.
He's trying to ride on your coattails. That's all I'm saying. And he's trying to go right to the top. Well, man, honestly, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a great chat and good to know you. And enjoy the shows tonight, man.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Thanks for having me.
No worries.